Welcome, everyone. We got to keep an eye on this thing. You know, we might have a weird internet connection happening here. So much of this technology is dependent on how well things work. So, welcome to our podcast. And we're going to try this. It's called, and we're calling our podcast Music, Marriage, and Ministry. So, this is a bit of a test. Like I said, this is like we're new to this podcasting stuff, and so we are going to take a quick look here and see.
Okay, so I'm seeing
if
us now.
Things are going.
It's going. We're on. Hi, everybody.
Yeah,
how's it going?
I see it. Yeah, we're on. I see it right there. But then I'm going to get podcasting stuff. No,
yeah,
don't
get
feedback. We are going.
No doubling up.
Don't log in while I'm there because I'm going to get feedback. Okay. So we're here. So that's good. It's working. Awesome. I mean, so it's kind of cool how we did this. So let me get geeky for a moment. So we got basically this is all an app-based multi-camera system. And we basically have old iPhones. These are old iPhones are our cameras. And so there's one there pointing at Sandy. Wave, Sandy. Say hi. See, there's Sandy's. And then there's mine. There's another one. And then we have the third old iPhone that's up here. And we turned them into cameras and then run everything through an iPad. And we're able to do this podcasting thing. So we're starting this out, a podcast called Music, Marriage, and Ministry, because we want to talk about those aspects of our life and how it relates. I think I'd love to get into discussions with other people, and eventually we're going to be able to take live calls. And love to talk about some of the things that we see out there, some of the things that people struggle with, especially if you're worship leaders, especially if you're in church music, maybe you're a church musician, maybe you're a worship leader, and you have issues because there's about 300,000 churches in America, which means there's probably about 300,000 people leading worship, and it's all over the map. And it is a crazy time to be a church musician. There's so much demand. We feel for you, and we'd love to encourage you and reach out to you. And of course, we also want to talk about some of the things that we're doing at Pure Worship Ministries. And you can find out some of that by going to our website, which is called pureworshipministries.org. We actually have a website.
Yep.
And
but first we want to wish everyone a happy Friday.
Yep.
One of the favorite things that I like to say to everyone is Shabbat Shalom, and that just means, we wish you a very blessed weekend. We hope that you can have some time of rest.
It's not Shazbat.
No, it's not Mork and Mindy Shazbat. No.
Okay.
He always teases me about that, but Shabbat Shalom. And as you just kind of unwind from your week, we just really pray and hope that you have a great time with your family, celebrating with friends, and also just making time with the Lord. He designed the week so that we could have a day off. And, I don't know, it's sometimes difficult to find that margin, don't you think?
Yeah.
Because things, especially if you're a worship leader, because you just keep going and going and going.
Day off. What's a day off?
Yeah. He's saying it. Got to carve out the time.
That's kind of the craziness that we live in. We live in that crazy tension of, So yeah, I don't really feel like I have days off, which probably plays into a lot of my stress and anxiety because I just don't take that time to do that.
Right.
But when I do, then it's great,
So if we think about it, like we have the hours in the day and then the night comes and, God designed the rhythms of life like that, with the sun rising and the sun setting. And so that's why I really like setting aside time on Friday night just to relax, unwind, worship, really focus on the Lord. Maybe come down, play a couple songs, just preparing my heart, Yeah. It's good to get in that. So I've been doing an artist course for the last about 10 days. And we're just learning about ritual and how getting into that rhythm really frees up the creative mind. So I don't know if you're a person out there struggling with that and you're longing to be more creative, more, in tune with things. That's a huge deal. Getting into a rhythm and a little bit of a ritual.
You've been getting a pretty good rhythm lately because you've been working on a little thing called a book.
I have.
It's been cool because for those of you that don't know, Sandy's been working on a book that has to do with her healing journey of discovering music and how it has impacted her life. And so she decided to write a book, and we're doing a companion CD with the book. And so I don't want to sound like a commercial, but I just want people to know what we're doing. So they, we have friends all over the place, and so I just want them to know what's happening. But
it's been a new season.
So you're kind of on a roll. Like it took a while to get going, didn't it? It's like when did you start? When did you start the whole process?
Oh boy. Well, the truth is I've been doing a lot of writing for about 5 years. But now it's been time to pull out the chapters, pull out the topics, kind of cement them together. So it's kind of been, some of it's been an editing process, and then some of it's been just looking through my journals and then recreating stories and weaving in the scripture that goes along with it. So yeah, it's been quite a process, but I've been dedicatedly working on this for about 6 months.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so now you're up to like what chapter?
I'm on chapter 6.
Chapter 6. So yeah, it's really starting to flow. Like they're starting it's really starting to happen. So
yeah,
we're hoping that this will get done by summer, and we also have some songs that are going to go along with it. I might even play a couple, or just like give you a little sampling. Let's do that. Let's do a little sampling of it.
Yeah, sure.
Because here it is. One of them is this guy here called Kadosh. What does Kadosh mean?
Kadosh means holy, holy, holy.
So we hired some string players to do that, so that's pretty cool. Still isn't even the final mix yet. It's just you're getting to hear some of the rough stuff here. What's happening there, Sandy? That didn't sound like English to me. What's going on with that?
Yes, I'm singing in Hebrew, and the Hebrew language is a beautiful, poetic, multi-dimensional language, and I've just enjoyed,
multi-dimensional.
I know. I love throwing those words around, but
what does that mean?
So yeah, like this week I was looking at some. You know how I love collecting old hymn books, right? And I was thinking back this week on all the hymn books my grandma gave me, and I actually collect them. It's really cool. So if anyone has any old hymn books you want to send me, I'd love that. But I was looking at the Jewish liturgical worship, and one of the musicologists at the turn of the century, because nothing had been written down, he went around and transcribed what he was hearing in Israel from synagogue to synagogue. And so I was it was kind of like peering back in time. I think it was 1923. And yeah, I'm looking at ancient melodies, and that's part of my book.
Right. But so you're saying Hebrew's a multi-dimensional language. So what does that mean, Sandy?
It means you have to put on 3D glasses and then go into the movie theater, and then they start spinning around.
So this is the kind of stuff you're going to be talking about in your book.
Yes.
So I'm just teasing you because I know,
and I'm teasing you back.
I know what you're talking about. It's really cool. And I think we talked about this a little bit before. I just we're pretty passionate people. We're passionate about music. We're passionate about each other. We're passionate about the Word of God. We're passionate about our relationship with Christ. We're not perfect people, but we're passionate, and so we get pretty passionate about this stuff because it's really cool to hear how to hear these things like what Hebrew. The what you say multi-dimensional, I'll say multifaceted might be a better way to say that. The depth of it, of that language as it developed, from symbols,
symbols and pictures,
pictures, the aleph was a symbol of an ox.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And then it kind of turned, and then over the centuries, it turned into what
so
it
literally
looks
was
like today.
Like the head of an ox. So if you think like this, and then it turned.
Right, and it turned it, and it looks like what it looks like today, but also gave birth to even our own letter A, the Roman numeral letter A. Gave it, it has similarities to that, but the what we're doing with this music is really, really cool because you're finding I don't know how much we should reveal because we're still got the book to come out, but basically there's all these, so when you look at Hebrew and you look at the letters, what's the multidimensional thing you're talking about? So one's it's a letter, which is
it's a letter, it's a sound.
Yeah.
And it's also has a meaning to it. So each letter, I think
it's a letter like a sound.
That's one thing that people don't realize is each letter has a sound, and then it also has a meaning.
Okay.
So
right.
Aleph means strong. Okay, or leader or father.
Right.
It's symbolic. It has a meaning. Each letter does, and then it also so it has that picture of an ox, and then it also has a numeric value to it.
So it has a sound. It has a
picture,
and it has a numeric value. And then even then you can still break apart the letter.
Right, because for example, the letter Aleph is in 3 parts. So it has an upper part that's a yod and a lower part that's a yod, and the part that's in between is called the vav. So you have 3 in 1, which that's so exciting to me because Aleph is in the word, even though the ah sound is silent, it's in the word Elohim, which means creator, God creator. God our creator. He is 3 in 1. He's Trinity. He's Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So the 3 in 1.
So that's so it's just stuff like that and that gets me excited. And then the whole numerical value thing is really cool and we talked about that before too. Just how you can add up those numbers, and they can give you an even deeper meaning into the scripture.
Exactly.
For example, so
What are you cooking up over there?
well, I think I talked about this before, but since this is our first official podcast, I'll mention it again, right? So so there's a passage in Genesis, and I'm going to go there right now. Genesis, I think it's Genesis 1:14.
Okay.
Yep. And in Genesis 1:14, it says, and God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years." So so that passage is talking about the sun and the moon,
Right.
because it marks, when they're, the moon, phases of the moon. That's how they would. That was their calendar year. It was a lunar year, and so they would use the moon as a guide for their calendar in ancient times, and still today. We have a different calendaring system now, but there still is a lunar calendar. Chinese still use lunar calendar, and Israel they still use a lunar calendar.
It was to mark the festivals
Right.
and the seasons, and also when they should plant. And in fact, it's funny we're talking about this because we're having daylight savings time
Yeah.
this weekend,
Right.
and I just mentioned about the Sabbath and Shabbat and taking a rest.
But what's cool
So-
is that word signs. So you take that word signs in Hebrew, in the Hebrew, and I don't know if this I think this will break it apart. Let's look up that word sign. In Blue Letter Bible, there's this cool website. Have you ever? If you have, that's a cool. I think that's the one, right? Blue Letter.
Yes.
So if you haven't checked this out, if Blue Letter Bible, if you've never checked it out, it's amazing, because you can just you can look up a verse and it just breaks it apart. Original language.
There's lots of study tools
A lot
there.
of study tools
Yeah.
in there, exactly. And so if I click on that verse, we see the word for sign. Right here. Oath. Oat. Thank you.
Oat.
Oat.
It's kind of like a
Oat.
TH, but it's a hard sound.
Right.
Oat.
Oat. So the word for sign, and so we're talking about that multidimensional thing. If you add up the numerical value, and these numbers aren't just arbitrary. These numbers were just centuries old. This is because they didn't. This is how people counted back then. They used their letters to count. They didn't have 1, 2. They didn't have the. If you look at your clock right
Symbology,
now,
yeah.
you look at your clock. You look at your phone. It says 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are symbols. Those actually aren't numbers. Those are just symbols of numerical values. They didn't have that until that was developed in India, and then brought into Arabia, and then it is what it is today. So when you take so people had to use letters to represent the numbers in their cultures. And so when you take the numerical value of that word oat, if I'm saying it right, it equals the number 400. And that's so it's talking about the moon and the sun, and it just happens to equal the number 400. Well, big whoop. Why is that so cool? Why is 400 so big deal? Well, because the sun and the moon appear the same size in the Earth's sky, but we all know they're not the same size, right?
Right.
We all know the sun is vastly bigger than the moon. But if you go outside and you look at the sun, which you shouldn't do, but if you look at the sun and you look at the moon, they appear to be the same size from our perspective. And the reason is because the sun's diameter is 400 times greater, but the sun is also 400 times further away. And that's
Wow.
why we can have a total eclipse. And how interesting that the numerical value for sign equals 400. Right? So that's like the God mic drop right there. Boom. It's like 400. So it's stuff like that. So the Bible is just has all kinds of stuff. That was my email. The Bible has all kinds of stuff like that you can get deep into that and just go like, I mean, so, and that helps somebody like me who, I struggle with doubt, and I struggle with like, I'm not much of a feeler, I'm a thinker, and so, I kind of need those things in my life, to like go like, that makes it real for me,
Well, you
and
also, we both love science, you
right.
especially. That was one of the first things we had in common when we met, is we both love science and technology and looking up at the stars
Well,
at night.
and when we met, I was an atheist. So
That's true.
I was living in San Francisco, and I was literally across the street from the San Francisco Science Academy, and that's where I lived. And every Wednesday, first Wednesday of every month, they had free science day or free museum day in all of San Francisco. Now they still have that, but they spread it out now. But and I would go over there, and I would look at all of the fossil records and stuff, and I just that would confirm my belief system. It was a belief system. My belief system was, I believed there was no God, that we're here by accident and happenstance, and that happened because I
Didn't you have like a
I
crazy
had
science teacher or something?
in my freshman year in high school, I had a science teacher who said, first day of the school year, said, "Who here believes in God? Just raise your hand. Raise your hand right now." And I don't. Of course, a couple people did. Most people probably just wouldn't have the guts to do it. Being a freshman, what are you, 13, 14 years old?
Yeah.
And so a couple people did, and then he said, by the end of this class, you will no longer believe in God. And his whole purpose was to prove that God's not real. That was the purpose of the science class. And of course, I, being young and impressionable dude, I thought, man, that dude's cool. I want to know what he knows. He knows something. He must know something. I want to know what he knows. And I learned everything I could about how amino acids can form into RNA, and RNA will eventually become DNA, and the little goofy lightning experiment with the gases, and and how life was sparked, and
Wow.
which there's a lot to say about the fallacy of that experiment. But you even went to the Denver Natural History Museum a couple weeks ago, and they still that experiment's still up there. This experiment they did that is really not a quality experiment, but they still cite that as like proof that life happens. But anyway, that can get, I don't want to get too deep into that, because then we just start talking about all kinds of craziness. But even though I believed in that wholeheartedly, and that I was driven, and I pursued my music in high school, and finally in college, and went to San Francisco, and that's when I was there in San Francisco, and I just remember just going like, I don't know, I just feel empty inside. I feel like there's something that's not, I need something else. There's got to be some purpose for me, and here I am in this city of 1 million people in 5 square miles, and I just felt like the loneliest person on the planet. And I called out to a God I didn't believe in, and I said, "God, if you're real, then fill this void inside of me, you know. And the next morning, the phone rang and it was you. And,
I called you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like,
That's so funny because I was raised to never call boys. Love you, Mom and Dad.
and so, of course, we knew each other because a couple of years prior to that, we were working together in a funk band.
Oh my goodness. Are you really going to tell this story?
A funk band called, I still remember it now. I won't even say the name of it.
Yeah, don't.
But
It's too embarrassing.
because this band took out a want ad in the Sacramento Bee looking for musicians and singers and keyboard, because they said we're going to open we're going to play Arco Arena and open for Janet Jackson. I'm like, okay. So being stupid teenagers, we went and auditioned.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
We got in the band, but I remember I was in, so they liked me and they let me be their keyboard player, and then you auditioned and
To be a background singer.
And so we tried writing music together. Try writing R&B pop music at the 80s, right? So it's late 80s, so we're talking like Pebbles.
My goodness.
Pebbles, Paula Abdul, Mercedes.
But here's the crazy thing. The closest thing that I came to in listening to R&B was like Whitney Houston. She's so pop. It's so funny.
The widest R&B artist out there. So
I was really a pop head. Yeah. So it's pretty funny.
We tried.
We tried.
It was pretty bad. And so we kind of lost touch because we just couldn't write any good songs. And I remember.
Oh, you were very focused. Like you're like, I want to be a hit songwriter and a producer.
And you took me to see some Christian rock heavy metal band. I hated it.
Yeah, they were in spandex.
Yeah, I was just like, what is this, man?
That's pretty hideous.
I know it was the 80s, but I was always kind of more the like, I was into like punk music and alternative music, or they called it modern rock back then, and
wow.
And new wave, and so I wasn't into metal, man. I thought metalheads were stupid, and so you took me to see this Christian metal band. I was just like, whatever, man. And but it's funny. So you called me. So fast forward, you called me, and and we started dating this time. So and so, do you remember what our first date was?
Oh yeah, our first date was a movie. So you loved going to movies. I didn't ever really go to that many movies, but we went to an Indiana Jones movie.
There it is. That's right.
Okay, we just dated ourselves.
So we went to Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade.
Yep.
That belongs in a museum. And then we started, falling in love. And he kept trying to tell me about God, and I was like, whatever. And it's so funny because even though I prayed that prayer, it still didn't quite sink in. And then our relationship started getting more and more serious, and we
got married. We just celebrated 29 years together.
Yep.
Can you believe that?
And
it doesn't seem like it, does it? Does it to you? Does it seem like that long?
No, because I don't remember much anyway. So no.
Okay.
But I do remember that we were pretty serious, but you were kind of really schizophrenic and.
Wait a minute, schizophrenic?
Yeah, because you kept breaking up with me.
Oh, okay.
And, and I didn't know what the heck was going on. And so I think you were struggling with like that. I wasn't a believer.
Yes.
And so that was stressful, but so I even moved away. I was like, forget it. I'm out of here. Remember that?
Yeah.
I moved to Santa Cruz, got a job at a radio station.
Yep.
And I was like, but then we called and said, well, let's try again. We made up and then we started getting more serious and more serious, and one thing led to another, and well,
I got pregnant.
there you go. That's what happens, you know, when you're young and stupid. And so
Yeah.
and so you were pregnant, and I'm like, well, I want to do the right thing. I want to get married. I want to get married.
Here's when I knew that you really loved me, is when I told you. First of all, I had told myself, okay, I'm not going to tell him while he's driving the car on the freeway. But that didn't work, because that's exactly what I did. And he almost crashed the car.
I don't think so.
I'm just teasing. But we were going to the zoo, and then you just sat there and you're just like, oh, we're not going to the zoo. We're going somewhere else. And you took me to a bookstore and bought me a book on pregnancy, how to be healthy. And I was like, oh my gosh, it just really hit me, like how caring you were and how much you loved me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, but I want him in my life. I wanted you in my life.
Yeah. And so so I said, well, let's get married. And you said, well, and we decided to do counseling. And I said, well, pick a counselor, because I don't know any. And you picked this guy named Clarence Wolf. And I didn't know he worked for Billy Graham, but you know, so all of a sudden I'm in his office and he's laying down the 4 spiritual laws at me. I'm like, holy smokes. And but it's kind of cool, because for somebody that was so logical as me, I never really understood the whole concept of Christ as Redeemer, and you know, and when he laid it out, it kind of made a lot of sense. I was like, huh.
Yeah. And
I thought, well, what do I have to lose, you know? And so I started, you know, I prayed to receive Christ, and that was November 18th, 1989.
Wow.
And
you stood up in church and gave your testimony. Blew my mind, blew everybody's mind.
And we were on board. I was on board with it, man. Because when I get on board with something, I'm kind of that way. You know, as you know, I've struggled with addiction and substance abuse. And you know, if you're familiar with people that are like that, you know that we kind of as addicts, we kind of live extreme. We live in extremes. Mm-hmm. You know, we're all in or all out. There's like it's either you know, we got to have our coffee super hot and our Coke super cold, you know, or soda super cold, you know, ice water, you know, we're just extremes that way, you know. And so I was all in, and I jumped all in and grew like crazy.
Yeah. So like next to his Bible, you guys, this is so funny, but amazing and a miracle from God, really. So one of the first books that he got, and he would put his Bible here, and then right next to it was Walter Martin's Kingdom of the Cults. And the reason why was he had people in his life that were Jehovah's Witnesses, that were into Mormonism, and he was just like, I want to find out the truth. And like he read it cover to cover. Like it's like this giant encyclopedia about every cult that is known. And he just grew and grew and grew, and he could defend his faith, and it just kind of blew my mind, really.
Yeah, I was we got married pretty quick after that, and my first job was working as a envelope stuffer. Is it, you know?
That's glamorous.
Yeah, I stuffed envelopes, and so 8 hours a day I'd stuff envelopes and get this table and this envelopes, and it was all like political mailings, you know, and then
really it was political?
Mostly political, yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And so you just stuff these envelopes, and there's a 6-foot table, and then there's another 6-foot table in front of me with another guy that's stuffing envelopes, and he's my age too. We're both like 21, and he is a brand new. I'm a brand new Christian, and he's a brand new Jehovah's Witness. And so every day he'd ask me a question, and I'd be like, well, I don't know. And then I'd have to go home and figure out something. And then I'd come back with a question for him. And we did this back and forth for a year.
Wow.
Or a whole year. And that's what just elevated my knowledge of Christianity and my faith. And, in hindsight, it was great because I needed that foundation. And also in hindsight, it's not the most important thing in my life. It's kind of funny. It's like I need that solid foundation. It's like you need that solid foundation, but the house isn't complete until you get the relationship component down.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't come till much later. But, and that's probably,
Wow.
we can probably talk about that later. But,
Yeah. This is really good. I think there's a lot of people that don't know our story, and I think it took a lot of years for us to be able to talk about our story because, it's just like the enemy to just wrap you in shame and guilt and fear, about what the struggles you've had, the failures you've made, the mistakes you've made, the wrong choices. But the coolest thing is how God just turns it all around, and your mess becomes your message. That's what I love. I love saying that because your mess becomes your message. And honey, I'm looking at the clock and we don't have that much time because we're actually going to take a friend out for birthday.
Yep.
But I just thought that's really cool. We kind of hit on marriage, and I just want to hit on music a little bit. So today is International Women's Day. So to all you ladies out there, happy International Women's Day. I have so many beautiful women in my life that have mentored me, encouraged me, supported me, and I just, who you are, and I just love you. And I was also thinking about, on this day, who's been an influence in my life as far as music. And one of my favorite hymn writers is Fanny Crosby. And I don't know if you realize this, but she wrote over 8,000 hymns. Blessed Assurance, and just so many songs I grew up with. I love her music, and she was born blind. I also found out today, I just did a little research on her, and she actually went to a school for the blind in New York City. And she ended up writing poetry and speaking to presidents and just becoming very well known, and God just really used her, but she didn't come to Christ till later in her life. So I thought her whole story, I'm going to be finding out even more about her life because as a songwriter, as someone who writes, I love rearranging hymns and putting that into what I do and what we do at church. And so she is just a strong woman of courage, and her music is just so beautiful, and just that she had these challenges early in her life and she overcame them. I just thought that's just an inspiring story for today. I just wanted to share that.
That's cool. So let's just, we can wrap it up. Thanks for being here. We're trying really hard to finish this project, so please keep us in your prayers and your thoughts. And as we try to get this music done that's going to coincide with this book, and we could really use your help. It is costing some money to produce all this stuff, so if you feel so inclined, if you would pray about it, becoming part of our team and becoming a team member, joining with us to do something that God has called us to do, which is to show the healing music of the Bible. And man, you're going to want to listen to some of these podcasts coming up, because as we get closer and closer to this book being done, you're going to be amazed at how this whole thing unraveled and what it means for music, and just some cool things. I've just been blown away. A year ago, we led worship at the Southern California Book Writers Conference, and now Sandy's writing a book.
I'm writing a book, something I never
really
thought I would
cool.
do.
Also, just to let you know, this next Monday, which is only a couple days from now, there is a songwriter showcase at Third Space Coffee. That's on Academy, and it's at 7 p.m. So come out to that. Sandy has a couple of songs that she's being featured with, along with Jared Anderson.
It's really cool.
And a bunch of other songwriters from New Life. So pretty cool stuff. And then finally, I just wanted to show you guys this. That's what we used to look like before we were married. So since we're kind of talking about this,
did you find that photo?
Because we moved here to Colorado. So when we moved here to Colorado, we had, we had to go through all our stuff, and so this is the very, very first photo
that was taken up at Apple Hill.
That was ever taken of us.
A place called Apple Hill with apple orchards. It was one of our favorite places to go to. Oh my goodness! And we stood next to that tree, and the tree was just a little bit.
Little tree.
It was just a little bit higher than we were at that time. It was maybe about 8 foot tall tree, 8 to 10 feet, and now that tree is over 30 to 40 feet tall. So it's pretty fun when we go back there in California. We get to see it, and
right. So just remember, go to pureworshipministries.org. and click on the donate button or sign up on our email list. We are a part of Artist and Christian Testimony International. We're actually a department of them, which allows us to function as a nonprofit.
Yes, we are.
So when we finish this CD, this is what's cool. I've never done this before, and I'm really, really excited about this. Since we're functioning as a nonprofit, when we're done with this CD, we're not selling it. We're giving it away. So we want to give this music away
for a donation.
And
taking the music in places where most people won't expect. Yeah. Like I have been into elder care homes. That's something you don't get paid for, and prisons, wherever the Lord opens the door. We began this ministry because we said, we don't want to be limited. We want to be open and ready to go, even as musicianaries. I like that term, musicianary. So wherever God opens the door, whether it's on the street or in someone's home, we've been at people's bedside as they're passing away, and it's that's a holy moment. It's a humbling moment, and we want to go and minister healing and pray with people, and that's the heart of this ministry. And you guys, we're doing a podcast not to be special or set ourselves apart. We want to develop a community of people, a community of songwriters, a community that cares for one another, ministers to one another. And so we're inviting you to be part of that.
And we want to hear what's happening in your world.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you're interested in being part of our podcast, send us an email, send us a little text, a note or something. It's easy to find us. Just go on the web and search for our names. There's pureworshipministries.org or Steve and Sandy.
Yeah, because we're going to have guests on here, because we aren't the experts in marriage or anything. So we want to hear from you.
Yeah, we want to hear from other worship leaders, other ministries. Maybe want to get on here and talk about your ministry. That's what we want to do, and support each other as we continue to do this endeavor. And thanks for listening and watching.
Yeah, and also just to keep you encouraged during the week, we have Pure Worship Radio. So it's a station that we launched about 7 years ago, and we'd like to do some things that would help that grow as well. But we hope that encourages you this week, just listening to worship and getting in tune with the Holy Spirit in your life and the direction God wants you to go. So pureworshipradio.com.
All right.
Love you guys. Mwah! Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.
Here, I'm going to play out.
And Sandy's going to play out. What does that mean? You're going to play some music?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. Hold your horses, everyone. She's going to play some music.
shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Not all our music sounds like that.
It's Shabbat. I have to play a Shabbat
Okay.
song.
That's great. All right. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.